There we go. There we go. There we go. Oh my, I've had this epiphany, okay, because the ideological chaos, yes, it's another 105-degree day. The ideological chaos, the identity politics that we live with and among and in every day is very confusing for young people who haven't been to town, haven't seen Gay Paris, who haven't already done all the churches, okay? And I'm an old fossil. And because of my circumstances as a foster kid, thrown into different ways of thinking, I've had to do them all. Does that make sense? Okay. And I've been watching the last few days um, videos about Islam and its dependence on the empirical behavioral experiences of its prophet Muhammad 1400 years ago to define what people ought to be doing today. Okay. And its object is to sequester women so that they're safe, to specify how they cover themselves so that the local rapists don't, um, the local rapists are just normal, okay, and so that the local rapists don't take advantage of them. And they have concepts called taqiyya, which is deceit, jizya, which is protection racket, and jihad, which is conquest, which makes their living in a neighborhood kind of tricky. Okay, so let's look at the next one. The next one I looked at in depth was, of course, Zionism that I grew up with. And the Zionist family I grew up with were culturally Jewish. They spoke Yiddish, they grandma cooked kosher, they identified with Israel, but to them, religion was the opiate of the people. They never had a Torah in the house. And the only connection they had with holy laws, which we call common laws, they're the laws of the land, the laws against harm, was intuitive. They didn't self study what was lawful versus what was legal. And so they had no problem with usury. They had no problem with a nationalistic religion. They accepted the Bolshevik revolution as a legitimate reply and response to what the Orthodox Christian Church was doing. Okay, that's Zionism. I'm going to give you a graphic that shows that Israel today only claims to have 41% um, Jews living there. The rest are either secular or Islamic or some other religion. And of the 41% Jews, about a third of them take the Talmud at face value, and the Talmud is a Babylonian document which teaches the same kind of misogyny as you've got in the Quran and in Satanism. All right, so much for Zionism. Okay. The next one I had a little bit of contact with was psychiatry. Back in the 60s, I prepared a manuscript for a psychiatrist by the name of Skye Goffman. It was a PhD doctoral dissertation on anthropology, I think. And she subsequently committed suicide. And a few years after that, my internist committed suicide. And as you know, I've had a lot of problems with the medical profession because they don't talk straight. They don't tell me my actual blood type. They don't talk to me about the specifics of me and my situation. They speak in generalities, which is academia personified. Whenever you're speaking to somebody about or asking questions about the specific case, they want to give you the general case. The general case doesn't always apply. So that is my experience with the identity politics of academia, psychiatry, and medicine, is they're lost in their generalizations and have a great deal of difficulty getting into specific cases. At least my case, they've never been specific. All right. Okay, in education now, common law, Common Core does not teach legible handwriting, does not teach thrift or law or skills. It teaches generalizations and terms for abstract concepts. That's what our children learn now. That's the curriculum. And our children are very confused and demotivated right now. All right. So let me go into Christianity, because I've spent an enormous amount of time getting to know Jesus. Okay, Jesus. I met Jesus when I was 6 years old. I was staying with my grandparents in Venice, California in July of 1950, and they didn't really pay much attention to me. I was staying there because my mother was having marital problems with her husband at the time. And so they just let me wander, 6-year-old little blonde girl wandering around Venice and Muscle Beach. Cool. And one July morning, it was very, very foggy, and I took off and I walked down to the end of the boardwalk, and I was coming back and I ran into a lady who had a book. And she read to me out of the book. She read to me out of the 5th chapter of Matthew. And I remember thinking to myself, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think I'm going to do that. So at that moment, on that day, in that year, I said, okay, Jesus, let's you and I do this together and we'll see how it works. So from then on, I was looking for, where is the community that I can become part of? All right. And so I went to the interdenominational church and the Baptist church and the Methodist church, and then the Mormon church, and then Jehovah's Witnesses, and then Episcopalians, and then Quakers and Mennonites and Sikhs. Okay. I went to the churches. And each church had, first of all, its ideas, its doctrines, its beliefs, and then they had their behavior. And there was no connection, okay, between the beliefs and the ideas. Now, remember, I grew up with atheists, okay? And atheists, Theosophy has a nice thing to say about an atheist. Atheists make religionists honest, okay? And because I grew up in an atheist family, every time I try out a new church, I was there to see if they were honest. Wouldn't you? Okay. And what I found out was what they cared about was whether you had the correct thoughts clanking around in your brain, but they didn't care about your behavior. In the Catholic Church, it was full of distractions. Never mind that Jesus lived a role modeling life, okay? He established communities, and he based his teachings on revealing what was true. The Catholic Church doesn't do any of those things. The Catholic Church has distractions. They have a clergy-laity distinction so that the laity never or mostly don't get engaged. And telling the truth is considered insubordination. All right. The Episcopalians make a poor attempt at being Catholic because they have not very few of the devotional aspects to God that the Catholics have. The Episcopalians have turned to the left toward political correctness, which is in direct contradiction to the teachings of the commandments and the teachings of Jesus. Jesus was very ascetic. He was very devotional. He was a pilgrim's progress kind of a guy. All right. The Methodists get into do what feels good and do what's comfortable, which is the PC kind of way of thinking. And they bring in people who are broken, whose behavior has left them in a terrible karmic situation. All right. And so there's nobody in the Christian church teaching the metaphysics of karma, of what goes around comes around, and you have to reap what you sow. There's no one teaching the virtues that Jesus taught, nor prompting against the vices that are going on around us. And so what I see is that the church has adopted all the bad methods of the world, despite its claim that it's devoted to the God of the creation. And so where I'm sitting lately is with the atheists, because they're the ones making religion honest. Does this make any sense? I've had enough of the doctrines and dogmas and arguments over what I believe. Okay, I'm not even interested in going there, because the programmed instincts into animals at this point in social time appear to me to be more in effect than the instincts into human behavior. Dogs and cats who are feral look to me as if they have more common sense than people do. That the entire engagement in religion has become a racket. And of course, government is feeding that perception, because government wants to control the money, and you control the money at the church, and you control the church. That's what they think. Well, that's not exactly true. The response of the government to the confusion in religion is to throw up their hands helplessly and say, all the religions are alike, even though the behaviors of the Amish and Mennonite are very different from the behaviors of the Methodists, which are very different from the behaviors of the Episcopalians, which are very different from the behaviors of the evangelical Jesus freaks. You see, the behaviors are different, but it's politic to claim that all religions are going to the same place. Well, right now it appears to me like they are all going to hell. 44,000 people per year are committing suicide in the United States because to them, existence is absurd. And God may have given them a life, but the life they got was not what they came for. And so the practice and the process of religiosity has destroyed most people's intuitive, telepathic, remote viewing consciousness of a living and creating God. And I don't even want to talk about that anymore, because that just gets people upset. I don't even like to talk about what's true, but that's my job to talk about what's true. But what's true is Religiosity has become a racket that the government's rackets reply and respond to. It's all gaming. It's all gaming. And the most sincere people I know these days are atheists. And that's where I'm sitting. And yes, it's going to be 105 again today, and we'll just deal with that. And now you've heard the rest of my story. Have a good one. Bye-bye.